The Universal Tech Units podcast is an official tech podcast made by Speed and Nguyen with the voice made from Google's Notebook LM. Do not reproduce our podcast without permissions from the owner. Welcome to the Universal Tech Units podcast. Today we are jumping into, well, what is one of the most pressing decisions facing nearly half the world's computer users right now. We're navigating the October 14, 2025 end of life, the EOL for Windows 10. And for you, the listener, whether you're running just a handful of home machines or a huge enterprise fleet, this is not a date you can ignore.
That's the critical point, really. Our mission today is to extract the essential knowledge you need to map out your strategic response. This isn't just about, applying a patch. It's a security, a legal, and a financial necessity. We need to look clearly at the scale of the problem and the technical pathways available.
And the scale is immense. I was looking at the data, and as of April 2025, Windows 10 still commands 53% of the global desktop market.
53%.
Yeah, that's a huge number. We're talking about potentially hundreds of millions of devices that are about to enter a danger zone. And what's maybe even more alarming is the sheer lack of preparation. Research we saw indicates 35% of small and medium-sized businesses are either completely unaware of the deadline or, worse, have absolutely no plan to upgrade.
That lack of planning is what creates the immediate danger. So let's unpack the strategic risks of running an unsupported system after that October 14th date when Microsoft just stops providing security updates and patches.
Okay, so when we talk about losing those security updates, what is the immediate, the real-world consequence for a business?
The security exposure is, well, it's total. Unsupported systems become a magnet for cybercriminals. You become a prime target for really sophisticated attacks, including ransomware, malware, and zero-day exploits. The moment a new vulnerability is discovered anywhere in the world, that Windows 10 system is left permanently exposed, just waiting to be exploited. It's essentially leaving your front door wide open.
And beyond the direct threat of a hacker, there's this whole other layer of operational and a regulatory risk that I think often gets missed until it's way too late.
Exactly. First, just look at operational continuity. If your unpatched systems get breached, you risk failures in mission-critical processes. We're talking about a security event that could stop your point-of-sale transactions or take down your ERP or CRM systems.
So your whole business could just grind to a halt.
Instantly. And then there's the regulatory headache. You can face fines even if you don't get hacked.
Which is a terrifying thought.
It is. That's the compliance risk. Running outdated, unsupported software can put you in direct violation of really stringent frameworks. If you handle credit card data, you violate PCI DSS.
Right.
If you handle patient health information, you're violating IPA. These violations trigger audits, and that results in heavy fines and, of course, significant reputational damage. Ignoring the deadline isn't just risky, it's a guaranteed audit failure waiting to happen in a lot of industries.
And even that last line of defense, your cyber insurance, it may not even protect you.
It often won't. Most modern cyber insurance policies have these stipulations that require the policyholder to maintain current software patches. So if you suffer a breach while you're running an EOL operating system, your insurer may just deem you non-compliant.
And void your claim.
Void it entirely. So ignoring the deadline is financially, legally, and operationally catastrophic.
That brings us squarely to the proactive solution then. Path A, the Windows 11 migration. And this is where it gets really interesting because migration isn't just a software install, is it? It's a fundamental hardware requirement check. So for you, the listener who's auditing your machines, what are the non-negotiable specs for Windows 11?
The requirements are mandatory, and they're mandatory because Microsoft is fundamentally shifting its security architecture to what's called a zero-trust model, which really requires hardware lockdown. The critical pieces are TPM 2.0 and Secure Boot.
Okay, let's define those for everyone listening. What is TPM 2.0?
Okay, so TPM 2.0, or Trusted Platform Module, is a dedicated physical microchip on the motherboard. Its job is to securely store cryptographic keys and credentials. It proves the device's identity and ensures the system hasn't been tampered with before it even boots up.
And Secure Boot.
Secure Boot works alongside UEFI, which is the modern replacement for the old BIOS firmware, and it just ensures that only software trusted by the PC manufacturer can launch during startup. If you don't have that TPM 2.0 chip, or if your machine is running that legacy BIOS instead of UEFI, you just can't meet the security baseline for Windows 11, period.
So we're checking the guts of the machine for hardware that enables a modern security approach. The good news, though, is that according to some assessments we saw, something like 87% of devices are technically ready for migration.
Which is a high number.
It is. But for those managing large rollouts, the technical prep goes far, far beyond just these few acronyms.
Oh, it does. The pre-migration checklist for an organization is extensive. Beyond confirming the core specs, like the TPM, you have to verify compatibility for every single critical business application. Your bespoke accounting software, your specialty industry tools. You have to confirm BIOS and firmware updates are available across your entire hardware fleet. You have to plan security baselines like BitLocker drive encryption.
And make sure your network can even handle the traffic from all those updates.
Exactly. It's a major project.
So once that compatibility check is finally done,
Yeah.
how does a large organization execute the move without, crippling productivity? You can't just tell everyone to install it over the weekend. What is the tactical blueprint?
Well, the sources outline a pretty robust, phased 5-step plan for a seamless migration. And this plan is really designed to minimize downtime and risk.
Let's walk through the planning phase first. What's step one?
Step 1 is assess devices. This involves a full audit of all your Windows 10 endpoints. You'd use management tools, something like Endpoint Manager, to flag legacy systems and then prioritize devices based on how critical they are to the business.
Okay. And step two?
Step 2 is check compatibility. So as we just discussed, you confirm all the hardware specs and, crucially, you test those core applications to verify vendor support and basic functionality.
Right, that covers the prep. What happens when the actual rollout begins?
This is step 3. Plan the rollout. You don't just deploy universally. You group users by their role, maybe the finance department first, or perhaps the sales team. Then you launch a small controlled pilot program. You gather feedback from those pilot users, refine your deployment scripts, and adjust based on that real-world experience.
Okay, so a pilot program is key. Then what?
Step 4 is to deploy efficiently. This is where automation is so important. Tools like Intune or Config.gr, which are essentially these centralized control centers, they allow you to automate the entire rollout across thousands of devices.
And that's how you enforce the security baselines automatically, too.
Exactly. It makes it scalable.
So what's the final step to make sure that investment actually pays off?
Step 5 is support and optimize. You see, migration isn't the end. You have to provide user training to address new interfaces, monitor performance using metrics gathered by tools like Endpoint Analytics, and then stay current with continuous patching via Windows Update for Business. This just ensures the environment stays secure and efficient long after that initial switch.
That's a very structured path forward. But what about organizations that hit a roadblock? Maybe a critical piece of machinery relies on one specific piece of legacy software that just will not run on Windows 11. They might be tempted by Path B, delaying the inevitable with Microsoft's extended security updates, or ESU.
And ESU should be viewed as a high-cost, high-risk temporary measure. It's a short bridge, not a destination. It's crucial to understand why this option really only offers a false sense of security.
So what exactly does ESU cover, and maybe more importantly, what does it miss?
ESU is not full protection. It provides patches only for vulnerabilities that Microsoft deems critical and important.
So there's a catch.
A big one. This means your system remains exposed to all the other, less critical but still dangerous, exploits and malware that are constantly being deployed. You are essentially buying a cheaper, partial insurance policy that won't cover the non-critical disasters.
And the practical reality is that it impacts more than just security patches, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I'd say the biggest operational consequence is application incompatibility. After the EOL, Microsoft 365 apps will no longer be supported on Windows 10. So if you keep using Outlook or Word 365 on an EOL Windows 10 machine, you will inevitably face degraded performance, reliability issues, and major disruptions to productivity.
And then there's the cost. The financial burden of ESU is probably the strongest argument against it. It seems like it's designed to be financially painful enough to force a decision.
You're right, it is. The cost structure is exponential. ESU starts at $61 per device for the first year. However, that price doubles each subsequent year for a maximum of 3 years.
Doubles.
Every year. Year 2 jumps to $122 per device, and year 3 explodes to a staggering $244 per device.
That is a staggering rate of escalation. We're talking about spending enough on year 3 patches for, 100 devices? That's nearly $25,000. You could use that money to buy a dozen brand new, fully compliant machines instead.
It completely shifts the budget priority. ESU is a tax on delay. It's money that is so much better invested in strategic hardware upgrades or just accelerating the Windows 11 rollout.
So if delaying is too expensive, the only choice is to move forward.
Right.
But what about those truly legacy systems, the ones that fail that strict Windows 11 hardware check? For that 13% of devices that aren't ready, buying new hardware across the board just might not be feasible? Do we have compelling options beyond Windows?
We do, and this brings us to Path C, lightweight, secure alternatives. This is a crucial area because it addresses the sustainability problem of retiring perfectly good hardware. And we see two primary non-Windows alternatives here, each serving a slightly different use case.
Let's start with ChromeOS Flex. That sounds like the perfect solution for older machines.
It is specifically engineered to revitalize older devices. ChromeOS Flex originated from Neverware's Cloud Ready, which Google acquired back in 2020. Its entire purpose is to take old PCs and Macs even systems that ran Windows 7 or older and turn them into fast, modern Chromebook-like devices.
And the requirements are minimal, I assume.
Very minimal. A 64-bit CPU, 4 GB of RAM, and just 16 GB of storage.
Wow. That's low enough to save hardware that would otherwise be trashed.
Yeah.
So what is the user experience trade-off?
The experience is highly secure, it's fast, and it's very cloud-centric. Installation is simple, usually just from a USB stick, and takes under 40 minutes. The trade-off is that it's designed for users whose daily work really revolves around web applications, Google Workspace, or more commonly, the web versions of Microsoft 365.
So if you live in a web browser, it's a pretty seamless replacement.
A zero-friction replacement, yeah.
But many users, especially those coming from Windows, still prefer that traditional desktop environment where applications are installed locally. That's where Linux comes in, right? Which distributions provide the best transition path for the average Windows user?
For users seeking a true Windows replacement, the community often points to Linux Mint. Specifically, the Cinnamon edition is recommended because its user interface is deliberately designed to feel familiar. It's very similar to the Windows 7 or Vista desktop environment.
Okay, Linux Mint. Any others?
Another excellent option is Zorin OS, which is visually very polished and explicitly targets Windows transitioners with tools that make the installation even easier. Both are known for their stability and high security.
That sounds promising. But moving to Linux isn't an in-place upgrade like Windows, is it? It requires a different preparation mindset.
It absolutely does. And this is the biggest caution for you, the listener. Migration to Linux is a clean slate. You must back up all your files first because the installation process requires wiping the hard drive completely.
Right.
And the second challenge is finding alternative software. If you rely on specialized Windows-only applications, particularly major products like Adobe Photoshop or specific CAD tools, you must be ready to find open-source equivalents.
Can you give us a practical example of some of those software replacements?
Certainly. Instead of Microsoft Office, users transition pretty smoothly to LibreOffice. For image manipulation, a popular choice is GIMP, the GNU image manipulation program, instead of Photoshop. But for users who are dependent on the cloud, remember that web versions of Microsoft 365, Salesforce, and other services work perfectly well on Linux right through the browser.
And we should probably quickly mention that truly unofficial path we saw in the sources. Tiny11.
Right, Tiny11. It's a heavily modified, lightweight version of Windows 11 designed by enthusiasts to run on extremely minimal specs. We're talking 2 GB of RAM, 8 GB of storage, and no TPM requirement.
But it's not a real solution for business.
Absolutely not. This is not a solution for business or regulated environments. Because it's unofficial, its security updates are irregular, they're manual, and they often require reinstalling the entire operating system, which just introduces significant security risks. It's a curiosity, not a reliable pathway.
So we've covered the urgent October 2025 deadline, the necessary technical hurdle of the Windows 11 migration, the unsustainable financial burden of the ESU delay, and these compelling cost-saving alternatives like ChromeOS Flex and Linux Mint for legacy hardware. The takeaway, I think, regardless of the path you choose, is that proactive strategic planning right now is the only viable route.
Absolutely. The choice before you isn't simply about an upgrade. It's a strategic decision on maximizing the life cycle of your hardware while minimizing operational and financial risk. By strategically choosing Windows 11 or leveraging these lightweight alternatives, you gain long-term efficiency and full security compatibility, and you avoid the spiraling costs that come from just delaying the inevitable.
And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the original sources highlight that the first Chromebooks were introduced way back in 2011 with just a 2-core Atom CPU and 2 GB of RAM.
That's amazing to think about now.
It is. So if a modern, constantly updated OS like ChromeOS Flex can make a 2009 Mac or an old Windows 7 PC useful again today, it raises a really profound question. How might the entire life cycle of computer hardware change if operating systems focus more on backward compatibility and less on mandatory hardware retirement? That is something worth thinking about as we move into a more sustainability-focused world.
It encourages a mindset shift away from forced obsolescence, which is a significant strategic consideration for any business.
See you again in the next episode of this Tech Podcast.